Yeah.
All right. Next game that I have is going to be Minnesota versus UNC. I talked about this a little bit on the Kickstart episode last week that I did. UNC and Drake May were a little bit like when I looked up his stats and I started watching some highlights, I thought they were a little bit like less overwhelming than I thought they would be going into the third game of the season. He hadn't put up the numbers, like the Heisman numbers that I was kind of expecting when I looked at it. I predicted that Minnesota would lose this game. I thought that they would keep it a little bit closer because of their defense. But you look at Drake May and you look at Ethan Kalika-Manis, you have 400 yards and 2 touchdowns for Drake May, almost 400 or over 400 yards. And then Ethan has 133 yards, 0 touchdowns. To me, that's kind of like the difference in the game. The quarterback play in the passing attack was just so lopsided. Like I said, I was surprised that Minnesota's defense couldn't hold them in check a little bit better. Maybe the teams that they played before this were not as good as we thought they were when we saw that Minnesota defense. UNC outgains Minnesota by 216 yards. Big takeaway for me in this game was that it looks like to me Darius Taylor is the guy in the backfield for Minnesota. I think I actually wrote this down. He had 22 carries. There was 8 rushes for the rest of the team. Sean Tyler, like I thought he was going to be the man when they started this season, and he has been put firmly on the sideline because of Darius Taylor. And Darius Taylor's been playing good. He's actually really good out of the backfield too, catching the ball. He had some nice catches in this game. Just couldn't do enough by himself. I don't think that Minnesota should be necessarily like embarrassed by this loss because UNC is a really good team, top 25 team on the road. You don't need to like put too much thought into this, but you do have to bounce back from this and go get a win next week. I think UNC, this is not Big Ten related, but I think UNC is one of maybe 3 teams that could win the ACC this year. Really good. And then one last note I had about UNC because this kid went off. Nate McCollum, he had 15 catches, 165 yards. That was good for 5th in college football this weekend. So just a great game for UNC. And like I said, just kind of surprised with Minnesota's defense. Did you see any of the highlights from this game?
I caught a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I have 2 thoughts on it. One, Darius Taylor is the guy. If you don't know, so if you guys follow 24/7, they have some really good sites and then they have some really crappy sites. And it just kind of depends on them. I'm not going to mention the crappy ones, but Minnesota's site is fantastic. They have awesome guys who cover it over there. Unfortunately, they have like a podcast or anything like that. But if you read their stuff, they do a great job. And all of the Minnesota insiders were calling this. They were like, Darius Taylor, like, pay attention to this guy. And so I was actually saying it before week 1. I was like, watch Darius Taylor get more yards or more carries than Sean Tyler. Of course, it didn't happen. So, people rake me over coals for it. But, now I'm feeling a little bit better about it. I was like, okay, guys, it just took a week. Like, it's like the rookie running back in the NFL who it takes a week or 2 before they give him all the carries,
he's a freshman. I don't know if people know that either. He's a freshman, so.
Yeah, and he was not a super highly rated recruit either. He really buys into PJ Fleck from what I hear, and he is one of those guys that PJ Fleck is just like you've done everything I tell you to do. You have the talent. You're going to get rewarded, and when you do what PJ Fleck wants you to do, more often than not, you're going to put up stats in that offense because he designs it around you. And then my other thought was this was really the game that I was thinking the entire time, like. The Big Ten West needs to play the Big Ten West because, Minnesota does have a good defense and they did disrupt Drake May a little bit in there. 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. I think they did a pretty good job of stopping the run. But unfortunately, like Drake May is just too much of a playmaker. And you don't have quarterbacks like that in the Big Ten West. Usually, I mean, every now and then you do, but usually you don't. So it fits Minnesota's defense a whole lot better. But I would caution anybody to think that, Minnesota's out of the race for the Big Ten West at this point, because I really do like that team. And I think they really could give Iowa a run for their money. And in the Big Ten West, they're probably my second or third favorite to win it right now.
But I mean, after you've seen everyone play from the Big Ten West, it's like, well, who is going? I mean, I don't think you can count anyone except for Northwestern out. It's like, who is good? I mean, I think all of them have a chance to win it. I mean, even Wisconsin could turn it around still at this point.
That's true.
Even though they didn't
Very
play
true.
that well. So,